way, Red.
Okay. Yep, go left. I'll go right.
Thank you.
Wow.
You want to sit on this side, beautiful lady?
Boom, boom, boom.
Hello, everyone. Hey, hey. How's everyone doing? Great. I'm Bijan Bayne from MetaVise. We organized this informative and entertaining panel for you to address how to build community engagement in the metaverse. So we brought together some thought leaders to help you remember how to engage people and how to address using things like data and real-world analytics, real-world case scenarios to keep people in the equation and make sure that you're using the best practices, which we'll hear from everyone here on this panel, to remember that this is all about that the operative phrase in augmented reality, and augmented word in virtual reality is reality. So it has to be based on the needs and the interests of people. And so we'll go around and have each of the members introduce themselves for about 15 seconds, and then we'll jump into it. So we'll start on the left.
Hello, my name is Darnel. I'm the CEO and founder of Distinctly Marketing. We are focused on people, and we can tell you anything psychographically or economically or around anyone, anywhere, in any zip code in the contiguous United States. We love data, we love people.
I'm Mark Elenowitz, and I'm the guy that last year you hated, and this year I'm your savior because I'm the regulated guy. I operate the only regulated stock exchange in the world powered by the blockchain. So we're talk a little bit about how to do this the right way and see what's going to happen for the next 20 years and forget about what's happened over the last 2.
Hello, everyone. Jawed Halepota, one of the co-managers of the Sports and Entertainment Division for Upstream. And we partner with pro sports teams and colleges to run their Web3 initiatives on a regulated platform.
Hi, I'm Ashley Fox. I spent 25 years as a sports journalist, including 7 as an NFL analyst and reporter at ESPN. I am an expert in content, and I am now a managing partner in a new company called Sports Family Group that is a sports family office for aspiring athletes and professional athletes to assist them to and through their careers. And I am in charge of original content and sports media.
Hey everyone, I'm Quenton Brown. I'm also a part of the Upstream team at Sports and Entertainment and building relationships with athletes, entrepreneurs in different walks of life so that they can understand how to build those communities, different IP angles, and just assets that they hone that they might not have offices as Sports Family Group, Upstream, data analysis to bring those communities together to have those bridge gaps to bring to life.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evan Forster. I'm the founder of Superfans, and Superfan is an artist discovery platform that uses gameplay and game theory to move artists and creative content creators through a maze of daily tasks and dares, pushing you through the life of and the process of discovering talent.
And I'm the moderator, Bijan Bayne. I'm with MetaVise, and we're an ad agency that assists brands with storytelling in the metaverse. Also, we work with events, expos, conferences, influencers, performers to brand themselves in Web 3.0, AR, VR. So we'll start with Darnel to talk about how data informs branding and event promotion in the metaverse.
So I think the same problem or the same challenge that the metaverse is facing in terms of its relationship between people, technology, and information is the same exact process for people who are operating in 3D in real time. Companies as big and small are still struggling with large data. However, the answer in a lot of cases seems to be throw more process, throw more machinery, throw more intelligence or ability to grab more pieces of information to create a sizable enough thing that you can then tell a story and have justification for the build of anything. For a second, if you go back in history, specifically on the US, right? A lot of the issues that we're facing now is the notion of federalism, the relationship between where the federal government stops and where the state governments start. That is the number one complicit challenge inside of the metaverse in terms of the ability to connect with people. Because when you establish community based off of some set of norms and values that are shared that allow people to come together. And information has become this new talisman that people and businesses want to use to make these things, all of these wonderful experiences. However, if you irresponsibly seek information, then you're irresponsibly setting up experiences for people. The beauty of the metaverse is its ability in the responsibility of creating another life and another instance for people to come together. And the way that you have to do that is you have to be really thoughtful, really laser-like, and really responsible in how you leverage information and you connect that information to people so that you can create the bridges that are necessary to create community.
Mark, we want to talk about how compliance is an integral tool and an integral element to this entire process, and also differentiate, if you can, compliance and regulation so that those in the room can get a sense of not only the significance of compliance, but where it differs from, say, government oversight.
Well, let me just start off by saying the obvious. It's been one terrible summer. I mean, if we all look back and we see what's happened here, first we saw billions of dollars be lost. We've seen billions of dollars be locked up into bankruptcy situations. 60 billion in Luna. We had FTX. We had Voyager. We had Celsius. We had BlockFi. And there's soon to be others. But that's the bad news. And the reality, and this is the part that most people don't recognize, is that regulation is important for investor safety and security. A lot of people in the BlockFi, or really in the Web3 or kind of the DeFi community, believed that technology can replace regulation. And what we've seen here is now it's really important to understand that technology can enhance regulation. Regulation is designed to protect investors, to create a safe environment for everybody to be able to transact. So we've seen a lot of lessons here over the last year, and really the last 2 years. The NFT 1.0 is over, and now NFT 2.0 is just beginning. And as he just mentioned, it's important to understand that a lot of these instruments and a lot of the great ideas that you have and a lot of the things that you want to implement might fall under securities laws. And there's a misconception that certain types of instruments are not securities because why do you need to register them? But the reality is if you're dealing with the United States, securities need to either be registered or exempt. And a registration is something that you think about like a regular IPO. An exemption is something that allows you to be able to sell these securities that are exempt from registration and be able to reach a community. But the problem is there's narratives and different types of opportunities that are available, but they all have various aspects of restrictions and disclosure and things that need to be taken into consideration. So it's hard to imagine when you deal with the Web3 space where why can't I buy something and sell something to somebody and be able to instantly be able to trade that and monetize it. So there's a few things that it's important to know. If you sell an asset that has a royalty stream, that is fractionalized, that allows others to be able to benefit from your work and be able to participate in those profits, that's a security. If you're dealing with things, and the argument might be made is, well, I'm designing something that has a utility function, and that utility function is going to allow me to unlock content. It's going to allow me to go to a game. It's going to be able to have a pay-per-view event. While that instrument itself may not be deemed a security, the marketplace that effectuates the sale needs to register as an exchange, because if they're taking a commission and they're allowing the interaction of a community to be able to buy and sell, then that's something you have to look at. So these are things that people didn't think about in the past that now you need to explore and examine. And selfishly, this, my quick plug, is we are in a regulated stock exchange to allow that to happen. But regardless with us or anybody you work with, it's important you speak with counsel and really understand, is the instrument, is the product, is the idea that you have, are you going to trip over and create an issue for yourself down the line, or are you going to really build something that's going to be able to explore and grow and allow everybody to participate in the visions that you have?
Jawed, can you talk to us about how athletes and people in sports enterprise best build community engagement?
For sure. Appreciate you, Bijan. So in the sports space, as we saw, as Mark referenced to in NFT 1.0, a lot of big players popped up. Dapper Labs, they partnered with the NFL, NBA. They did a great job of getting those licensing agreements in place early, and now they're dealing with it with sanctions and all of that because, like Mark reiterated, they were operating in an unregulated space while selling what were deemed securities, even though they were digital collectibles. So we partner with sports leagues, college sports teams, athletic departments, and players to bring them a regulated aspect to that. So when they do profit off this or make money, they can keep it. And how we've done that is we partner with established brands, established colleges, sports teams. They already have their own communities. So we come in as an external resource to ease their pain points in entering somewhat of a mystifying, confusing space, being as emergent as NFTs and Web3. And then we work with them with our resources to make game plans, implementable game plans, and then work with them to bring them to life. We have a lot of partners in the college space, and we've been fortunate enough to make some headway, and now we're partnering with their communities. So we go to a college, we run a beta with them, serve them as well as we can, and then they introduce us to other athletic directors, other pro sports franchises, and then from there, we grow our community by partnering with their communities, and that's how we've been able to capture different communities and ease their pain while entering the Web3 space.
And Ashley, with your experience in sports storytelling and with athletes, teams, leagues, and brands, in that experience, what are some of your sort of takeaways or some of your observations about how to work with athletes and how to extract stories and extract the best content out of an athlete's narrative or season or training? What's the best way to go about those things?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've had a long enough career that I've seen the way that we distribute content and create content has changed. I mean, when I was in college, we used an X-Acto knife and typeset and did newspaper print by hand. And then I worked at a magazine that was the preeminent publication in America at Sports Illustrated that is now basically extinct. I worked in newspapers. I did digital. I worked at ESPN. ESPN now has got ways of distributing content through ESPN Plus that they didn't have when I was there. Things, now what we're talking about, Web3, VR, everything's changing so much. But what hasn't changed, in my opinion, is the way that athletes, just like regular people, want to be treated and communicated with. And when I first started covering the National Football League 15 years ago, one of my mentors said to me, Ashley, the national football is a relationship business, but isn't every business a relationship business? Isn't life about relationships? And so for me, I always approached it with athletes as, that they want a couple things. I mean, these are highly, at least professional athletes, highly regimented, disciplined, intelligent creatures who are, used to schedules, thrive in routine, and they want authentic communication. They want people who are responsible, people who are accountable. They want truth and honesty. and they want some consistency. And I think that those are things that everyone in business likes, but in particular, I mean, I've found that if you treat athletes with respect and not necessarily reverence, but respect, that they will respect you back.
And Q, we'd like to hear from you about, just pivoting off Ashley's learnings, how athletics and IP in the sports performance sector, what are some of your what's some of your thought leadership in that regard?
Being a past athlete, and like everyone has said on this panel very articulatively, you have a lot of angles and opportunities in life that you don't always hit the mark on. And there's, like you said, there's counsel, there's due diligence, there's a lot of things that you can use at your advantage so that you can bring those things to a certain game plan so that you can hone your own IP, build those communities as we talked about, use these different tech realms, whether it's VR, Web3, data analysis, or outreach, or storytelling, or community building through a college, or just a local guys club or girls club. There's different ways that this community and this level of tech that we are in now today, that we can control those IPs, you can build those units out yourself, you can have more access to regulated platforms, to different types of data analysis, to build those different communities so that you can have every angle at your hands instead of at the market's hands. And in the past, we've all kind of fall short on working with different partners that kind of benefit your leverages and your assets and your strong comings more so than working with the market that kind of benefits what we usually tend to give them the information or work with them on their partnership or work with them on their strategies. And you have a lot of athletes, communities, colleges, different platforms that don't get that leverage and they don't get that IP back. So you're now helping feed the other side of the pot when you could be building with a like-minded ecosystem to help you protect those assets and build a like-minded, safe community.
Before we go to Evan, you know what's interesting is I know something about everybody in this room. So when you were in 6th grade, you went on class field trips, and one of the class field, between like 4th and 6th grade, one of the class field trips that you went on was to a planetarium or an observatory. And the things that you had learned in your science class or your astronomy class came to life more so when you were in the observatory or planetarium because you saw it projected in a virtual space. And you were a little bit more engaged and there were more oohs and ahs than when the teacher was reading from your science book or you were reading it to yourself or they were explaining something and using the blackboard. So obviously this concept that immersion is more engaging and that it captures people's attention in a different manner is nothing novel. And to that point, we're going to pivot to Evan, and Evan is going to address the evolution of storytelling and engagement and some unique ways in which he did it, which were decades ahead of the curve.
Okay, so like I said, I'm Evan Forster, and I own a company called Superfans. And one of the things that I've learned over my 30-plus years in the entertainment industry is how to identify alphas and to find communities. And one of the things that's really important, and if any of your athletes, when you were growing up, you had to be the best athlete in your house first. Then you had to be the best athlete on the street, on the block, in the neighborhood, in the region, and you level up, keep leveling up. Well, what happened in our business, especially in the music business, is that artists thought that they could just jump in and deliver content and think everything's great and they're supposed to be the biggest stars in the world. But there was no foundations built. And what we're seeing in the convergence of media and music and entertainment and gaming is that there had to be a bunch of different touch points. And one of the things that I was that I saw as a youngster was I was a club promoter at 16 years old. And I had to give out almost 10,000 invitations every single week to get about 1,000 people to show up at my club. So I'm seeing the ratio of how many people are going to come in, how many touch points I'd have to hit them within the head. I'd have to, somebody from word of mouth or getting a flyer or a poster. So I took these methodologies of really, I look at it as art of war tactics, Sun Tzu tactics, and guerrilla marketing tactics, and coupled them into creating street teams. And street teams were now you call them brand ambassadors, but in the late 80s and early 90s, this was novel approach. We had been dumping stupid amounts of money into promoting and marketing and to push content out, but we never really knew what the community wanted. And this is that we're seeing how things are changing and evolving. Well, we were also the first ones to put music in video games. And the reason that we were putting contemporary music in video games is because I knew I had a community. Every year, 1995, 96, 97, 98, and 89, EA Sports, Sony PlayStation, Activision, all the major gaming companies, they already knew they had a community. So if I was going to bring music into the game, I couldn't just say I want royalties on every unit sold, because the games already had a base. They already had 5 million, 6 million people. So we would just say, hey, we can just plug any music in that worked. And we ended up finding that we could break music through video games. Now, the gaming industry was so much bigger than the movie business and the music business combined, but no one really had tapped into it. Well, if you look at how cultures evolve, especially with hip-hop culture, which is, I think, the best because it's diverse. You know, the majority of the people that are buying hip-hop music historically has been white kids, but the fashion and the community was built in the streets. So you could be any color, right? But you had to know who the guys were that drove the pulse. So it's funny when I talk about this at the university level and whoever's in the audience is like, you went to the biggest drug dealer in the street? Well, I didn't go to the biggest drug dealer in the street, but the biggest drug dealer in the street had the street. So if I knew that he already had the crowd, I was giving them music beforehand so they can push that content out to the cool kids, to identify those kids. Now, whether they were the coolest kid because they had the flyest clothes or they were going to the hottest clubs, we knew I had to identify those kids because they were part of this culture of hip-hop. And as things started moving forward, we were seeing that if you could look at the young kids, little kids, and I give this example a lot because I was a coach, and we have a bunch of athletes up here, but when I was coaching my son, throughout his life as an athlete, I remember coaching the baseball team. We're in the championship, and the kids were talking about Minecraft in the dugout. And I'm like, guys, you're talking about Minecraft in the dugout. We're playing baseball game here. But the kids were so enwrapped, you know, from Dungeons and Dragons, and then this one, and then Minecraft, and now Fortnite, and all these different things. Well, again, we saw that not only virtual goods, and we were the first virtual goods company, Virtual Greats, in 2010, we were creating virtual goods to dress up avatars back then. So we would see how the kids were utilizing and dressing up their avatars. They wanted to be cooler than the other kid or have different advantages. Well, they had new kicks on, they had baseball caps, they had things. We did a deal with Snoop Dogg, who was one of the first artists we signed, and we did his Dookie braids. And you could put his Dookie braids on a Zwinkie, in the Zwinkie game or in Club Penguin, and they would pay us $3. Or Justin Timberlake would do his dance moves, and they would pay us $3. Or you'd put a Nike hat or Skechers or whatever the brands that we had in there. But we knew that we had the kids that were playing these games. So where I see things going now, especially with virtual worlds, and you know, from Second Life and now how it's evolved, you're going to see many more opportunities for artists. We're seeing that with Travis Scott doing his performance in Fortnite, and millions and millions and millions of kids going there. So the interaction between real-world practice is what you were talking about, real-world practice in the virtual worlds and augmented reality virtual worlds, like virtual goods, all of that stuff is just getting bigger and bigger. When we started in that business, it was a $1.6 billion business. This is 2008 with Virtual Greats. You know how big that business is now? $86 billion. That's a huge market for virtual goods sold. So it's only going to get bigger. I think what Mark's doing and what the guys up here are doing is incredible, because the deregulation has been chaotic, and the fact that he's bringing that kind of, you know, compliance issues back into this is going to be very helpful to what we're trying to do here. But I think we have a bright future ahead, especially with the convergent media, and I'm hoping with the technology that we're bringing to you guys with the Pro Card and Super Fans game that we're going to have some fun with it. So that's my 2 cents.
So now that we've had a little fun, back to Darnell. How can people who are providers and designers and developers incorporate data into the best storytelling and messaging in the virtual space?
So I think, it's always, the want is always to lead with data. Really, the want is to lead with people. Design theory, separate whether you're feet on the ground or feet in virtual, is a design that caters to an experience tied to people, to ultimately do the thing, whatever the thing is. There are moments along that journey to the thing that just have to be captured, and people that have to be considered. So if you consider people, then that allows you to be data informed, right? There are three states that you can live in. You can be data driven. That's only if you're a quant at a hedge fund or a home office. You can be data inspired if you're at an agency or a consultancy, or you can just sort of have data available, meaning like really being able to have a repository of things to dive into. The same way that you have design cues and things that you put on a list when you're trying to create the best experience. If you think about information that way, then information becomes actionable immediately and allows you to do something with it. And in the end, putting people first simply by proxy of considering what people want.
Jawed, I'd like to ask you how you sort of determined what your focuses would be in terms of sports promotion and why you chose certain things to focus on in college and professional sports.
Appreciate that, Bijan. Yeah, so I mean, we chose the sports world mostly because Quenton and I, we come from the sports space. We both established ourselves as younger men directly out of college in the sports space. Quenton played for a little bit for the Raiders. And so, we were able to build our network in the sports space and take that to the emergent space. So by partnering with these schools, we just got in where we fit in. I'm an alumni of St. John's. Let them know that. Let them know our position with Upstream and how we'd like to ease their pain points. And then from there, we showed them an implementable game plan with capturing their community through free collectibles and then building on that season by season, maybe even year by year, to now, once your community's built and you've captured them, now your community understands I can buy a courtside ticket or season tickets as an NFT and say I don't want to go to this game. I can sell it as an NFT very easily. St. John's gets their cut. So now you're looking at colleges and pro sports teams encouraging scalping. They're going to get their cut in the secondary market in perpetuity. So they want you to sell your ticket before the game tips and after the game tips. So that's where we were able to convey to a lot of our partners going forward. And we're grateful to, like Bijan pointed out, we were able to get in where we fit in, and then from there, work with them and empower them, bring them in on deals to introduce us to their established communities to really capture the entire college sports landscape and the entire pro sports landscape.
The sports space is a fantastic space to be in, and that's why we started Sports Family Group to represent athletes from a holistic approach, both financial services, media, working with these guys with NFTs, with NIL deals. And if you find athletes, like I said, we found that there was a missing part in that market, and we wanted to fill it because it is such a great space to be in.
And lastly, Evan, why do you think it's important to remember when you're doing storytelling in augmented space to make sure that the data that you're collecting includes spaces that might be uncomfortable to look for that data?
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, I've been in some very precarious situations when it comes to the hip-hop community. And, we've had to overcome censorship issues and lyrical issues, and we had to talk to the people that were fighting us when it was about putting out records and music and content. But we realized that if we could get that information, the data from why they didn't like certain things, or more their psychographic information than demographic information. Once I was able to gather what made them purchase this, or what made them support this artist, or push an artist forward, or empower a specific kind of group, if you have that information, you're able to get it. I used it terrestrially as opposed to going socially. But I always like to have one-on-one conversations, go into every specific market. Every market's different. The Southwest is different than the Northwest. It's still community-based in the real world. And in the virtual world and the metaverse, we're going to see these communities pop up everywhere, whether it be from different countries around the world or subgroups that are coming out from hip-hop to trap music to this. We're able to identify different kinds and genres of music, drill music. You know, these are new and emerging kind of content that's coming out. It used to be every couple of years. It's coming fast and furious every couple of months now. You don't know if you're going to get an EDM act or if you're going to get this or you're going to get that. But if you're able to follow the data and be able to follow where the crowds are and where the people are going, you can try to carve out that path. And kind of when you're a marketer or a brand, you're going to look to those fine data points, especially when you're trying to identify an alpha, which is very important for most of the brands out here. If you can find where the cool kids hang out and where they go, you have a major advantage over thinking where you're just going to push information to people. The kids, you can't fake them out anymore. They do more research than they ever have before, and the information is coming at them so fast that you have to ask the right questions, which we're talking about, Darnel. What are the questions you're asking when you're talking to your fan? I'm looking for fan engagement, so I have to have specific criteria that I look to. It might be the brands that I like, the brands that I hate, or the bands that I like, or the bands that I hate. The more information and the deeper dive that we can go on the psychographic side of it, the better, and the risk averse. I won't spend as much money trying to market to people that aren't going to receive my information properly. So I think that the opportunity from the terrestrial world into the virtual world is symbiotic in a lot of ways, but you're able to get so much more information quicker and faster that you're able to make better decisions. And I think we're going to see a lot of brands, even though we're seeing how the numbers have jumped from, like I said, 1.5 billion to 86 billion in less than 10 years. We're seeing these numbers explode, and we're going to see everything from NFT in your clothing, and you're going to be able to buy stuff, wearable technology. All this stuff is going to continue to increase, and it's going to get bigger and bolder. And we just want to be in front of it and be able to adapt. I don't have to adopt to everything, but I have to be able to adapt to what's going on in society and listen to the kids, because the kids are where it's at.
Well, I'm sure everyone has really learned a lot here about how to empower and to incorporate all these elements, from the facts and the data to the components of telling the story well, and how to use what the end user interest dictate or inform, also the role of compliance, and how to make sure that there's a lot of self-governance in play, and really use storytelling elements that really haven't changed since you were in 6th grade, or maybe even since the mythology of antiquity about what makes a compelling story from beginning, middle to end, character arc, and things of that nature, and how to implement those things in Web 3.0 AR, VR. So we thank you for your participation and attention, and everyone will be available afterwards if you want to follow up with each individual here, or more than one individual who was on the panel. Thanks again.
Let's get it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.